Jane Foster. Jane Foster from Thor: Love and Thunder.
She will be conducting the interview.
Natalie Portman from Heat. I was on set with Natalie Portman. The interview started. I was on set with Natalie Portman. And I was like talking about Heat. I was like, you know, like in that movie Heat. She goes, yeah, I know that movie Heat. She's Al Pacino's stepdaughter in Heat.
Small part there, right?
Sorry, bro.
Oh, it's going great so far.
And then I said to her, she goes, what are you up to next? And I said to Natalie, what are you up to next? And she goes, she said to me, what are you up to next? I said, I'm trying to work on a Star Wars thing. Have you ever wanted to be in a Star Wars movie?
You did not say that to her.
I forgot about those ones.
Yeah, I mean, you know, things slip your mind from time to time. What was her response to that?
She said, I've been in a Star Wars movie. And I went, should we do another take?
And legend has it that you had one meeting with Natalie Portman, and that convinced her to rejoin this
That's
franchise.
become legend.
Yes.
Shit. Seems
Yeah,
like it's easy to create legends in this town.
Perhaps legend is a bit strong.
Yeah, I went to her house. No, I got nothing to lose anymore, you know. I went to Natalie Portman's house, and guess what? She offered me a glass of water. I was going expecting like a nice, expensive rosé or something. I was like, oh, it's the afternoon, it's a hot day in
Sparkling
LA.
at least, nothing?
Something. Tap water. Just saying. Still gave her the part.
What was that conversation like?
I said-
Beverages aside.
Well, basically, I was like, you know, you a lot of the fans miss Jane Foster, you know, and you know, people want to see her again, and it just seemed like the perfect opportunity because you know the character was so great in the Jason Aaron run of The Mighty Thor, and so Marvel was like Kevin was already like, I'd love to try and like figure out a way to make that, you know, to kind of bring Mighty Thor into this film and bring Natalie back. And yeah, and it didn't take much convincing. She'd never heard of that run of the comics, so I dropped off some comics for her and to have a read, see what you think. And then she said yes. Boring story.
Yeah, pretty much. I regret asking it. Did the action
Don't
part?
ask me how I cast. Here's the thing. You know, it was, what was it like? How do you cast so and so? We offered them millions of dollars. They said yes.
You find that effective?
There's no interesting story with casting anyone.
Did the idea of the action stuff and wearing a costume and being a superhero, did it inherently appeal to her, do you think?
I think so, because the character, you know, in the previous films, you know, was sort of kind of second fiddle to Thor, really. You know, it was like the love interest. And, you know, she was fun, but, you know, just a human scientist. I don't want to play a human scientist. I don't want to play a human. And so she, the fact that she got to hold the hammer and fly and all this. And also, because, like, in the comics, Mighty Thor, a.k.a. Jane Foster, she can do all, like, she, like, wields the hammer in a different way than Thor. You know, she, like, the hammer seems to, like, do, like, sort of, like, more in keeping with her. Like, her action stuff is, like, more kind of, what's the word? Balletic? Ballet-ish. Ballet-ish.
I like that.
It's ballet-ish. I don't know these big words. It's like a ballet.
Ballet
so
influence,
like she's a ballet dancer. It's like belly dancing.
Yeah.
And the hammer, like, you know, kind of like complements that. Yeah. Because when Thor, like, he was throwing the hammer, it's like, soup, 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 soup.
So it's a
And
black swan.
Her one's got a black swan. Yeah. It's the black swan of hammers.
Yeah. In my head, what I imagine is that Christian Bale is a very, very serious person. And you, while being a serious person, are also a very funny person. And I was curious about how those two things intersected on set.
I too thought that Christian was going to be like a very, like, yeah, hear all these stories about actors, oh yeah, when you hear them that people are method or like, they really take it seriously. And I am just used to working with my friends. We're like a very casual way of working together, and we give each other a lot of shit, and like we just sort of it's it's like being with your family. And I would say that I was a little anxious to work with Christian and Russell Crowe, and I would say out of all of the actors, those were the two biggest sweethearts maybe that I've ever worked with.
Really?
Just no problems, no ego. When you work with people like that, they're like, I'm already awesome. I don't need you to tell me that. I know I'm good. And so I think that just like gets rid of the ego bullshit.
Does one moment with Christian on set stand out or two?
The one moment on set with Christian that stands out is when I put my daughter in a scene with him and a couple of other kids, and after 2 takes, she walked off and she came up to me and she said, "Give me my money." And I said, "No, babe, you got to do it all day." And she said, "All day?" She said, "The breaks are too short, and the clothes don't look real." And she says, "I'm not doing it." And I said, "Well, then you're not going to get paid." She said, "Well, we're rich." Then Christian came up and he goes, "Wow, that little kid." He goes, "I don't think I've ever been treated like that on a set by anyone." He goes, she walked past Christian and he goes, "Hello, how are you?" And she went, and just like walked off. And I tried to explain to her, I was like, "This is the guy from Empire of the Sun.
Right.
What is wrong with you?" She'll understand one day.
This is, I believe, the first MCU film to use the volume, and the volume is the screen. Not telling you, telling people listening. The volume is the screen
right.
that people use for that was previously used on The Mandalorian, and it allows actors to feel immersed in the world. The special effects are going on behind them on the giant screen.
Here's best way I can describe it is on set. If this was the set, we would provide the table and these 2 big giant ding-dong microphones and the chairs, and we would sit there, and then all of this behind us would be TV screens, and all of this stuff here would all be on the screens. And so what it means is that you have to decide beforehand what you want the environments to be, which is it's very different for Marvel because traditionally they're very green screen oriented, and they all these big movies are made in post, really. So all those decisions, what's the world going to look like, that all happens later on. But this was the first time that we made a lot of decisions up front, and it's kind of like filmmaking in the 30s, like a rear projection. You get it in camera, and then you live with it.
Was it your experience directing The Mandalorian that led you in this direction?
Yeah, I just liked the fact that the wall and all the environment stuff, essentially it's a lighting situation, right? So everything is lit. And in The Mandalorian, he's got his helmet is basically a big mirror. So you're seeing all of the reflections from everything on the screens in the helmet, which usually you'd have to do later on in post. You have to paint that stuff in.
I believe your episode is the one where Grogu gets punched.
Oh, yeah. I'm the director who punched a baby. It's actually Jason Sudeikis who punched the baby.
That's kind of your fault.
Jason Sudeikis punches babies. I got it on film. I filmed it. I filmed him doing it.
Well, that brings me. That's your guy.
What the
hell? My God! Oh my God! Is this a preview of what happens to Korg in the movie?
Disney, what the hell? Who made these toys? Oh, yeah, there he goes. It's back on.
Perfect timing. I was going. Oh my God!
What the hell?
Fantastic. So he
What the fuck is going on?
Holy shit!
This whole thing comes apart.
Perhaps it's a feature, not a bug. Does he in fact lose all his limbs in the movie? Is this a spoiler?
So sad. No, what the hell is happening? I can't explain that.
So I was going to ask about your man here, your being here.
Korg.
Yes, Korg. Korg, you said that his voice and manner came from sort of, I think, New Zealand bouncers. You said like
Yeah.
these huge guys who had this very gentle.
Yeah. Very gentle way of. They all kind of like talk like this, and this sort of like the way of like Maori and Polynesian it's our style, It's like we're gentle, but we'll kill you. So yeah, that's sort of like where that came from. It's just like there's no nicer way to be rejected from a nightclub than with the Polynesian accent. Sorry, man. We're at capacity tonight, so you can't come in. Try again another night, eh? Fixed him.
How about? I was hoping that that Korg could be in love in this movie. Could we be so lucky?
You know what? You can expect to find a little bit more about Korg's backstory, and I think what you find out in this film is going to ignite the world.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's also from the comics. So if you want to spoil it for yourself, go and look into the history of Cronins and find out what the Cronin deal is. Anyone here know about Cronins? The species? It's in the comics, and there's a little moment, and it's all described how they make babies.
You've cast yourself as Korg. You've cast yourself as a priest at a funeral, as a deadbeat dad, as Blackbeard, as Hitler.
Yep.
What
other white roles can I take? Is that your question?
Yeah, exactly. No, what? How do you decide what you want to play, especially when it's your own thing?
Literally, it's just what I would like have. What would have excited me when I was a kid. So Jermaine and I, we basically when we first met, we'd make lists of types of characters we wanted to play, and somewhere in New Zealand that list still exists, and it's hot doctor, scientist, pirate, man made of rocks, all these different things, and just sort of just picking our way through the list.
Pirate is a very. I'm enjoying that show. I just started watching it. Pirate is
Have
very
you got
old
to my
school.
bit yet?
What's that?
Am I on the? Am I in it yet?
Yes.
Okay.
But pirate is a very old school thing to want to be. It's like something someone.
Well, I mean, really, I didn't think pirates were very cool. Pirates aren't that cool. A lot of people are like, oh, pirates, awesome. They're losers. I mean, pirates are they're pretty dorky when you look at the way that they dress and stuff. I just liked that it was a love story between two dudes on a boat, and that's what really drew me to it, to the show.
It's love
I'm a
stories.
gay icon now.
Perhaps Korg too. We'll find out. I don't know.
Whoa! What are you getting at? I think you need to go and do that.
So I was intrigued to hear. Well, first of all, that your Star Wars project, which obviously you can't say very much about, but
Yeah.
that you said it's not about Chewbacca's grandmother.
You know what? I saw on Twitter, someone was like, "Oh, I'd actually really love to see a movie about Chewbacca, the grandmother," and they likened it to something, and I was like, "Shit, I shouldn't have said that because that sounds awesome."
Yeah, I
Actually,
also
a movie about Chewbacca sounds pretty cool.
spent a lot of time thinking about Chewbacca's grandmother after you said that. Actually, way too much. Intense thoughts. But the
Well,
but
Yeah,
but
you
the
never
idea
know.
being that you didn't want to just reveal some heretofore unknown connection to the existing story. You want to tell a new story.
I just feel like for me, I'm never going to please the fans. I don't want to mess with something that's so treasured, and also, I feel like you got to do a lot of research, and I don't have any time to go and I mean, there's a lot. There's thousands of books that have been written. That's all of this fiction, all of the stuff, all these volumes of books about Star Wars with all those characters. I just don't have the time to get through them. So I can't say confidently I'd be able to do something that's very close to what everyone knows. I'm not promising that I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm just saying it'd be easier for me to not do that.
The
Would
question,
you like to see a Jar Jar Binks movie?
honestly, yes.
What do you think should happen in Is it, do we pick up after Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones, or is it a prequel?
No, I don't think you want the prequel.
Him as a kid.
No, that sounds horrible. No,
What about young Jar Jar Binks?
no.
But it's like he's like E.T. and he gets lost on another planet and he meets a kid and the kid's like, I'm gonna help you get home, Jar Jar.
So it's literally
It's literally E.T.
Yeah.
But instead of E.T., instead of that ugly little guy, it's Jar Jar.
I think
Cute
not.
little floppy ears.
Now you're getting somewhere. Yeah.
Has he got ears?
He's got he's got like
Oh, he's got like
appended they
ears.
move around a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're beyond ears. There's something past ears. But I mean, I guess the only thing on Star Wars, and someone made this point. I actually think it's an interesting point. If you go too far away from everything we've known, why is it even Star Wars? Why not just make a random science fiction movie or a fresh science fiction?
Who said that?
Some kid online.
Is it
I don't
you?
know. It was.
Is it you?
It was some kid online, and I'm
Some
agreeing with
kid
it.
online
Yeah,
with
I'm
a
great.
beard and glasses. You know what? Whoever said that is actually probably right. Now I think about it, like as you were saying, I was like, yeah. If you take away all of the Star Wars stuff, it's not Star Wars.
So we're pulling
Okay,
you-
well, I retract my thing that I said a couple of weeks ago, and I guess I'm just gonna do what everyone wants.
Chewbacca's grandmother.
Chewbacca's grandma.
It could be the grandfather because you didn't roll that out.
Chew grandma.
It's before the grandfather met the grandmother. So
Oh! And she's like this sort of high-class Chewbacca lawyer, and she's like out in the mean streets of New York, and she knows what she wants, knows how to get it. She's strong, independent, but also she's got a sensitive side, and she just likes to let her hair loose, all the hair. She like to let all the hair down, let it loose, and just party sometimes. But she doesn't know how because she's too highly strung. Then she meets this other guy, Chewbacca's granddad, and he's just a surfer. And he's like, oh, man, tomorrow can wait, man. It's just like living the moment. And he's like, and there's no way that they're going to get hit it off, But opposites attract. And somehow, together, it just works.
I'm still stuck on New York, though.
Why not?
The New York section of
Yeah.
Kashyyyk, which is the Wookiee planet, I guess. Yeah, it's New York with like 3 Ks. Yes.
So, Kashyyyk.
I didn't know what chronons are.
Well, I mean, I'm to play the character.
You are
I just
a
do like half a day of research.
Yeah.
But, well, I just thought New York. I mean, that's another thing that would annoy the fans, wouldn't it? Chewbacca's grandparents,
in
and they meet in New York because she's a lawyer. I think I've just basically just pitched the proposal.
Could you tell me a little bit about Time Bandits?
Yeah. So, what do you want to know? It's an iconic film.
Yeah.
Terry Gilliam
Not
film,
the
and
Wikipedia.
We're turning the film into a TV show, and we're shooting it down in New Zealand, and it's great. It's just like funny, and it's like Jermaine's one of the best writers I know, and the stuff that he's been writing is fantastic, and yeah, I can't wait to get started on it. We're still casting at the moment, so I can't even tell you who's in it because we haven't even cast a single person. Oh, we've cast the kid, but you wouldn't know who he is. Oh, the kid's name. Here's something cool. The kid's name is Kal-El.
Is it Nicolas Cage's kid or a different?
He's got a kid called Kal-El.
He does.
It's not Nicolas Cage's kid.
It's another
It's
Kal-El.
a little English kid from England, obviously.
So the other Kal-El. Yeah, or could be Krypton. Yeah.
Little English kid from Krypton.
Yeah.
His name's Kal-El. Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I thought this was so amazing. I thought you'd enjoy it.
Yep. I should have stuck with I only know about music. Your opinion, I think that was a better slot to occupy in your brain.
Listen, we're all nerds. Just some of us have the decency to hide it.
You're not doing that.
I am. Look how cool I'm trying to be with this Issa Miyake jacket and pants.
Did you have to talk?
Sometimes it's cool not to be cool, and I'm cool with that.
Were there negotiations with Guns N' Roses about using their music? Did you have to have an Axl meeting? Anything good? Anything like that?
At one point they were like, the music supervisor was like, you might have to have a chat with Axl, but I was too scared.
You're scared.
I just, they say never meet your heroes, and I just don't want to. He's like one of the greatest icons for me, and I don't, I was like, I don't know if like I met Mick Jagger once, and like I've met a lot of celebrities, and I can usually have a chat with them, but there's certain people that are at this certain level where it just sort of silences you. And I was at some party, and my girlfriend goes, "Hey, come over and meet Mick." And I just went over and I went, "Hello." And then I stood there, and he goes, "That's a nice suit." And I went, and then I went, I'm just gonna, and I just walked away. I walked away. I had no idea what to say to him. I feel like that would be the same with Axl.
The trick with Mick is talk about blues harmonica.
Ugh.
You'd rather not.
I shouldn't have fucking talked about musicians and a Rolling Stone interview. Knew this was going to happen.
Sure. Actually, I'll tell you.
I don't want to hear any more fucking Mick Jagger stories from you.
The first time I ever talked to Mick Jagger on the phone, he said, it was many years ago, and he said, "I've just seen this marvelous movie, Close Up." And I said, "Oh, you mean," speaking of Natalie Portman, I said, "Oh, you mean Closer?" And I could hear the pause being like, "Don't fucking correct me."
No, Close Up.
When I say Close Up, it's Close Up.
It's fucking Close Up. Yeah, I mean, that guy. I went and saw him for the first time in LA earlier this year. Or was it last year? When did they play? How old am I? What year is it? Anyway, it was like just one of the greatest moments of my life. And man, they still got that energy. More energy than us.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to hit the Guns N' Roses thing one more time. You said it's like there's an 80s adventure feel to this movie. Is that part of the thinking behind using GNR?
Yeah, for sure. Like I grew up with all these, you can see some of like Chris's, the influences in Chris's costume. You don't have the other Thor here with the singlet, but that's obviously like an homage to Big Trouble in Little China, to Jack Burton, and just wanted like it to feel like I wanted the whole film to feel like an electric guitar, like a lead break. Just wanted it just to like the whole thing to feel like, just to have that, just like like all the art and everything. It feels like an 80s album cover. Even the title treatment, it's ridiculous. I wanted it all to feel like something that that I would like draw on my like school book in class. When I was perfecting like the Metallica name, and that title treatment, like the things like that. When you just like, or Slayer, or like all of those, basically all just those fonts from the 80s. Sort of what I was looking at.
So did you ever draw like comic book stuff on your notebooks, or were you a
Judge Dredd?
Judge Dredd, yes.
Judge Dredd was a big one. Everyone in New Zealand, all the kids used to draw him or Bob Marley or the zigzag guy from the paper, the rolling papers on your school bag.
You said that going to the Oscars and winning an Oscar for short film, and that you were kind of taken aback at how seriously everyone in Hollywood takes all this. Have you gotten used to that? Is there still kind of a
I mean, I think like, if you haven't won an Oscar, a lot of you're like, it's all bullshit. Then you win an Oscar, you're like, it's actually pretty cool. But so I changed my attitude a little bit. But it is, Hollywood's just weird, it's like, it's just very, it's kind of exactly what you think. Do you remember that movie, was it Pret-a Porter? I don't know if I'm saying it right. The Altman film, right? About the fashion. Porter? Sorry. Jesus. But, that, when you watch that, you're like, is the fashion industry really like that? It is. It's exactly like that. And so, like, you watch these films like The Player and things like that, like, things that, like, poke fun at Hollywood and the movie-making scene and celebrities. They're pretty accurate. I mean, it's a town full of assholes who just, like, never listen to what you're saying. They just nod and think about their next sentence. They're like, and now my turn, so that's just like me. Like, it's really like, but I do love LA. Like Los Angeles, Los Angeles for me is like one of the greatest places on earth because it's like the people of LA are awesome, and then there's some celebrities there too. But you know, like but there's awesome people in the industry. Like, but I tend to not try and like mix too much with. I just want to hang out with my friends and make films with my friends, and you know, and in LA I get to do that, and also live in a very cool city. But
Do you ever find yourself unconsciously being sucked in and saying something you never thought you would say and then catching yourself? Is that a danger?
You know what I said, which I always hated? You gotta say this thing, thanks for reaching out. You know, hey, I just thought I'd reach out. What the hell is that? Just say, I called. I just wanted to reach out. Thanks for reaching out. There's all these things like, just gonna circle back. There's all this like agent talk, which drives me nuts. It's all yeah. Oh, the other one I hate, big fan. Right. Yeah, so someone wants to meet their huge fan. I've had these meetings with people. They're not fans. I've been set up to go and have meetings with actors with their agents like, oh, she's a huge fan. Wants to meet. Gone to meet them. They're like, hey, can't wait to see your work. Sons of bitches.
It will be big fan. Tell me about. I mean, we didn't talk about the putative star of the movie, Mr. Hemsworth. I mean, I think it's notable. I think in the director's commentary, nerd, you said to your first Thor, you said that the goal was to make Thor the most interesting character in the movie, when all the odds were sort of against that. Well, you know, I mean, and he brought a lot to that. He's so much people, I think, might assume things about him based on the fact that he looks like the god that he plays, but he's a lot more than that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so how do you make Chris Hemsworth, who basically has got it all? I mean, good looking, perfect body. Also, annoyingly good at acting and very funny and great at improvising, and also is a great surfer. And it's like, well, how do you make someone like that more relatable? And it's like, well, in Ragnarok, the way I likened it, I was like, I'm trying to make something that feels like After Hours. It's like, he's a rich kid, but it's like Clueless as well. Like, but he's stuck in he's like stuck in South LA or something, and he's trying to get back home. And
I never thought of that. That's
yeah,
great.
so like when he goes to Sakaar, it's like he's a millionaire kid, a billionaire kid. He lives in a golden castle on a floating plate out in space, and he's stuck in Compton, and he's like, and someone's in his house, and he has to get home and defeat the intruder. And I thought, well, that's a way to make him relatable. It's like we've all been lost somewhere, we've all tried to get home, but he's very good at carrying that, and I think he did such a good job. And in this film, he's done even better. He wanted to really play with this whole idea of like Thor really like not knowing his purpose. After thousands of years of fighting battles and being an Avenger and all these things, he is now like I said, he's going through his like midlife crisis. He's like, what's it all for? Is this my purpose?
Just being a perfect, beautiful God.
My purpose to be a perfect God.
And before I let you go, which I will, one last thing about Star Wars that occurred to me, which is that, and I've talked to Kathleen Kennedy, I've covered all those films. One thing is, it is a little bit precarious. Many of the movies planned end up not happening because they're very protective of their universe, and they toss things the moment they're not working.
Might happen. I mean, who knows, it's like, and I'm I think probably Taika 10 years ago, would be so panicked and nervous at the prospect of that. But look, if it's not right, then it's not right. If it's not ready, then it's not ready. I don't want to rush. And that with Star Wars, that's something I wouldn't want to just leap into and not feel like it's unique. It's my film, and it makes sense. Because that'll be a disaster. It's a disaster on any film you rush in and you're not really thinking. So I'm going to do my best, writing at the moment, try and come up with an idea that hopefully everyone loves.
Chewbacca's grandfather in New York.
Yeah, man. Chewbacca, the proposal.
Again, pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, man.